Welcome to Out to Lunch with Judy. We are actually having lunch in today. I will be out to lunch, like physically out to lunch, many times, but for right now, we're in. And I have a message that I wanted to share, a novel idea. It is a fantasy, but I think the fantasy fits. The fantasy started some years ago. As a divorce mediator, I was listening to people lie to me. Go figure, right? People lie. Well, I was listening to people lie. I mean, you can tell to a certain extent when people are lying, and then there's like, you don't know everything, because there's no way people can really tell another person everything that went on to get us to the mediation table, to have the need for a mediator. We just can't. We don't think of everything. And so I say innocently, we kind of just leave things out. Be that as it may, it's still inaccurate communication. And when you're mediating, or when you're into very heavy discussions with people, you do need to rely on the fact that they're telling the truth. And so what is the truth? Well, the truth is the facts of what happened, the facts of a situation. Now, we can all work from the same facts and have very different viewpoints. And that is what makes us different, right? And that is what makes for a beautiful conversation if we are agreeing on a set of facts and now we're sharing how we look at those facts and how those facts influence us. And it's a wonderful experience without anger to discuss the same situation but from different points of view. I just find that amazing. And then just to look at a creative solution in a divorce mediation, when one can be found, it's almost like a religious experience, honestly. When I'm working with people who disagree on something, disagree on the application of something, disagree on how something affects them, but still agree on the same set of facts, and we can find a solution, I'm telling you, I'm on top of the world, as are the clients, as are the spouses mediating. And so I was thinking about that, and it really rings true with our political discussions now, because unless we're working from the same set of facts, meaning we have to fact check, we need to know our history, we need to read, we need to research. Unless we do that, we are not working with the same set of facts. And we're really just like speaking on this emotional wave that doesn't really get us anywhere but crashing and burning. So I thought about this years ago when I started as a divorce mediator, and I thought, what if only sound came out of our mouths when we were telling the truth? Think about that. What if our only choice in life, in order to be able to exchange thoughts with people, was if we spoke truth? Now, you can say, Judy, well, we each have our own truth about life, and that is very true. I agree with you. We each have our own truth. But when we have to come to decisions together, when we have to work together on something like either a divorce settlement, or we need to come together on general consensuses for decisions regarding government, decisions that affect our personal lives, as well as our professional lives, our financial lives, our religious lives, our sexual lives. I mean, our lives come in various forms and shapes and layers. But we do actually need to come to consensus. We do, or we just keep fighting. And that doesn't seem to be the way people are handling their political discussions. And until spouses getting divorced can exhaust all of the smoke screens, exhaust all of the emotion, exhaust all of the arguing and yelling. Once everything like that is exhausted and all we have left is conversation, that's when things start getting better. I know that my fantasy of having no sound come out of our mouths unless we're speaking truth is kind of a fantasy. We can kind of get to that fantasy if we listen. If we listen more than we argue. If we listen more than we try and pummel the other person when we're disagreeing with them. When we ask the why questions and how questions. So why do you think this way? How do you feel about this? Can you give me some examples, some context in order to have me understand where you're coming from? Then we can start moving to compromise, because I think that's what we need more than anything. We need that in a marriage when the trust isn't there anymore, because trust changes when we decide to get divorced. When we start talking about how we really feel and think about whatever it is we have to resolve. And the same thing when we're talking politics. If we can really just get down to, well, here's why I'm thinking the way I think. It's because I feel about this X the way I feel. If we can start getting to that point, at least we start getting to a more truthful conversation. You know, our feelings are our reality. We tend not to really want the fact-checking of reality. And even in divorce mediation, I'm not a therapist, so I can only go so far in exploring people's feelings. But I do understand the point of vulnerability. I do understand when we bare our souls, when we just speak from the heart, or when we say, you know what, I really haven't fact-checked. You know, I really haven't done my research on the mortgage to the house. Well, then we can stop and say, well, can we all agree that we'll fact-check then for a minute and then come back to the table and talk? In a divorce mediation, I always say, okay, well, there's some research now that you have to do, and then we'll come back, and once you have done your research, then we have something that we can really mediate. Then we have something in which we can explore viable options. That's how important doing research is. And honestly, even in divorce mediations, when I say to people, so here's your role, here are your tasks before we meet for the mediation, call the mortgage company. I'm still going to use the house, dividing the house as my example, because it's like the hugest example in a divorce mediation is the house in terms of the assets. So even though I lay out in an email, please consult the mortgage company, see what they need from you if you're going to assume the loan, lower wage earner, look at your budget, see what you can afford, and then when we get back to the table, we can talk in reality. And do you know, even when I lay it out, a lot of people don't do it. So we get to the mediation and I say, well, we can only go so far. We can only get to a certain point because this research really did need to be done. It's the same thing when we're talking politics or talking if our child is not straight and our child wants to go in a number of different gender directions. We talk emotionally. We have to research. We have to fact check. We have to really dig in, and in lieu of only sound is created when we're telling the truth, in lieu of that, we can get to our truth and reality with whomever we're dealing with by at least agreeing that we will research. And then once we research, we will be very honest about how we feel. We will be very clear. Let me just say it that way. We will be very clear about how we feel. We will be very clear about what we fear. We will be very clear about what we would like to accomplish. If we can really calmly do that, I think that's in place of the heavens saying to us, only sound is going to come out of your mouth when you're telling the truth. Now, what would the world sound like if, well, A, only truth could be heard, but B, what would the world sound like if we came together to discuss something really important, but we've done our research? And now, not only can we kind of clear up maybe some historical context to our discussions, whether it's the House or who we're voting for, or any other conversation we have to have. What do we want to do with our kid? How do we want to support our kid if they're not heterosexual? We can at least do it by taking a minute to learn, to educate ourselves, to really want to understand the reality of what has come before us and carve out a reality that works for all of us. If only truth created sound, is that really an out to lunch idea? What do you think? Where do you sit on this? Thinking of it all for you.